In the early morning light of a Chicago home on January 15, 2026, the civil rights movement and generations of Americans lost one of their most enduring and courageous voices when the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. passed away peacefully at the age of 84. Surrounded by his beloved family, Jesse slipped away after a long and valiant battle with complications from Parkinson's disease and the lingering effects of a 2021 diagnosis of Parkinson's-related dementia. There was no crash, no sudden violence, just the quiet, inevitable close of a life that had burned brightly for decades in the pursuit of justice, equality, and human dignity. The news spread quickly across the country and the world, prompting immediate tributes from presidents past and present, civil rights leaders, and ordinary citizens who had marched with him, listened to him, or simply felt hope because he never stopped believing it was possible. As we gather here to remember this giant of American history, let's walk slowly and reverently through his remarkable journey. From the segregated streets of Greenville, South Carolina, to the pulpits, podiums, and picket lines that defined a movement, celebrating the wife who stood beside him for nearly 70 years, the family that carried his legacy forward, the principled life he lived, and the unbreakable hope he gave to millions who still need it today. Jesse Lewis Burns was born on October 8, 1941, in Greenville, South Carolina, to a teenage mother, Helen Burns, and raised in a home shaped by love, hardship, and the harsh realities of Jim Crow segregation. His stepfather, Charles Henry Jackson, a postal worker, gave him the surname he would carry into history. From childhood, Jesse felt the sting of racism, separate water fountains, back-of-the-bus seating, the constant message that he was less than. But he also felt the fire of possibility. A gifted athlete and student, he excelled at Sterling High School, earning a football scholarship to the University of Illinois before transferring to North Carolina A&T State University, where he became student body president and an activist during the civil rights movement. In 1963, he joined the sit-ins in Greensboro, North Carolina, and began walking the path that would lead him to Martin Luther King Jr.'s side. In 1965, he marched from Selma to Montgomery, and by 1966, he was working full-time with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, becoming one of Dr. King's closest aides. When Dr. King was assassinated in Memphis on April 4, 1968, Jesse was there, standing on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel, blood on his shirt, tears in his eyes, and a resolve that would never waver. He returned to Chicago and founded Operation Push, People United to Save Humanity. In 1971, later merging it with the National Rainbow Coalition to form Rainbow/Push. For decades, he traveled the country and the world, registering voters, negotiating with corporations for fair hiring, marching against apartheid, advocating for peace in the Middle East, and running twice for President of the United States in 1984 and 1988. Those campaigns were historic. The first serious black presidential candidacies in modern times, mobilizing millions, especially young people in marginalized communities, and forcing the Democratic Party to reckon with issues of race and economic justice. In his personal life, Jesse found enduring love and partnership with Jacqueline Lavinia Brown, whom he married on December 31, 1962. Their union lasted 63 years, through marches, arrests, triumphs, scandals, and the quiet moments that sustained them. Jacqueline stood beside him at every major event, raised their 5 children, Santita, Jesse Jr., Jonathan, Yusef, and Jacqueline Jr., and became a powerful advocate in her own right. The family remained close-knit, even through public scrutiny and personal challenges, including Jesse Jr.'s legal troubles and health struggles. Jesse often said his greatest pride was not the podiums or the crowds, but the family dinners, the grandchildren's laughter, and the knowledge that his children and grandchildren knew they were loved unconditionally. Jesse's lifestyle was remarkably grounded for a man who had stood shoulder to shoulder with world leaders. He and Jacqueline lived in a comfortable but unpretentious home in Chicago's South Side, later spending time in Washington, D.C., and traveling for ministry and activism. He never chased wealth or excess. His pleasures were simple: preaching at Rainbow Push headquarters, mentoring young leaders, reading history and theology, watching sports, especially the Chicago Bulls and White Sox, and spending time with his grandchildren. He remained active in ministry well into his 80s, preaching, teaching, and encouraging others even as Parkinson's slowed his body. His net worth was modest for someone of his stature, estimated at $2 to $3 million. Built through speaking engagements, books, and decades of nonprofit leadership. He lived to give, not to accumulate. The tributes that followed his passing were overwhelming. Presidents, civil rights leaders, religious figures, and everyday citizens mourned a man who had marched with Martin, negotiated with CEOs, comforted families in crisis, and never stopped believing in the promise of America. At 84, after a life poured out in service, his departure felt like the closing of a chapter in American history. Yet his voice, his courage, his belief in justice continue to echo wherever people still march, still hope, still fight. As we say goodbye to Jesse Jackson, a husband, father, grandfather, preacher, activist, and one of the greatest moral voices of our time, we're reminded to keep pushing, to keep loving, to keep believing that the arc of the moral universe still bends toward justice. Thank you, Reverend Jackson, for the marches, the sermons, the courage, and the hope you gave us. Rest in peace. Your work is not finished. If this tribute to Jesse Jackson's extraordinary life, his tireless fight for justice, and a love he shared with his family moved you or reminded you why his voice still matters, please like the video and subscribe for more thoughtful stories honoring the leaders who changed our world. Your support keeps these legacies alive. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep hope alive.